Hello and welcome to another edition of Titan's Review Corner. I'm Titan. Okay, so, not jump the bandwagon. I had actually wanted to do this earlier last week, but I've been fighting illness. I wanted to do my thoughts on TRON Legacy. Yes, I know, at least a fourth or a third of you have already seen this movie. And, I'm always open to discussion. This is a semi-opinion / trying to be non-biased view. Whenever I go into a movie, I always try to look at it from multiple angles, and sometimes it works. So, this, it will get ranty. I will say that, because there were some things that I feel that I need to talk about. But there will also be some positive things. And for those of you that haven't seen it, I will warn you that there will be spoilers, probably from here on out. I don't know how many there will be, but there will be some. So, the quick version, if you go into the movie sort of not open-minded, but take it as a piece of entertainment, you'll probably like it. If you go in and find you like to analyze stuff, might want to stay away from it. Spoonie, I already watched Spoonie's review, and he got very ranty. Though he did bring up some really good points, and I'll probably end up touching on a couple, as well as something that I heard from not necessarily a friend, an acquaintance of mine on DeviantArt. So, with that, this is TRON Legacy. So, yeah, I did go see it opening night at midnight in 3D, because I'm not on the 3D kick. I've seen a total of 3 movies in the theater in 3D for this generation of 3D. Because, if you're as old as I am, you've seen the 80s version too. I'll touch on 3D movies here real quick. I've seen, my friend in California took me to see Nightmare Before Christmas in 3D. And if you haven't seen that in 3D and you have no problem seeing things in 3D, go see it, when it's available. That was actually really cool in 3D. It's subtle, it's because it doesn't have those jump out at you things, but there are details that seem to have been brought to life because of the 3D and just the layers. The layering really works for non-live action people shows, like for cartoons and the claymation and stuff like that. It just works so much better. From what I've noticed. The second one that I saw was A Christmas Carol, and I'll talk more about that actually in another review, because I do want to touch on it a bit more. The one that Jim Carrey did last year. And that was actually pretty interesting too, but then again, we're talking about animation versus live action. Now, getting to TRON, they had purposely done a couple of scenes at the beginning, at the end, that were not 3D. Okay, fine. I understand that they wanted to distinguish a little bit more between our world and the grid. Okay, they did a pretty good job with that. The 3D in the middle, it was good. It was definitely good. It wasn't great. I was actually expecting a little more of the pop out at you. But, due to all the hype of some of the other ones, aka Resident Evil, which thankfully I didn't go see, the stuff where it's constantly coming at your face, I wasn't disappointed, I was surprised. But that being said, it was sort of an almost nice subtle, and there was only a couple of scenes that I had problems like focusing on. Like, I've noticed that some of it's a bit more blurry, and I do wear glasses The only reason why I'm not right now is because I think I look horrible in them. So I had to put the glasses over the glasses. That's really annoying. Could they, I don't know, shape them a bit better, maybe? Not that I'm planning on seeing any more 3D movies ever, if I can help it. So the movie, it didn't really, I mean, if it added anything, it'd be like 10%. You know, I mean, it added a little something, but it's not really going to make or break the movie. Alright, so, where do I start? The plot, though at times simplistic, also tried to be more complex than the original. And, you know, A for effort, but due to the fact that they did want to add a lot more, they also brought up more questions than they answered. So, on the surface, the plot was fairly consistent. If you start digging under the surface, you start finding the holes. So, you know, if you go into it going, you know, okay, I'm ready for the movie, and you watch the movie, you're like, oh, okay, that was a good movie. And then you sit down and you start thinking about it, and then you're like, oh, wow, it needs some work. It's not a horrible movie. It's not the best movie out there. You know, it's gonna go down close to the middle of the road. The first thing that I noticed right away was young Jeff Bridges. What were they thinking? I'm kudos for the ambition. We want a young Jeff Bridges, so we're going to make him. They forgot to take a couple things into account. One, I have yet to see a CG character real enough to be real. They still stop in that uncanny valley. And this was no exception. This was, in my opinion, really noticeable. But I'm one of those that visually, I tend to notice all the little things, and that wasn't exactly little. The biggest problem was, besides the uncanny valley, is what they did to actually model him. At least this is as far as I can. This is based on observation only. I haven't watched any reviews or anything special like that. They took Jeff Bridges now, in his, 60s? Guessing, I haven't gone to... But they took his head now, and then modeled that after the young Jeff Bridges. Okay, fine. They forgot to take one very big problem to factor in. Jeff Bridges, young, doesn't look like Jeff Bridges old. And you're going to go, well, yeah, he looks old. Facial structure. I only have one other example of this, but go with me. Watch something, you know, Jeff Bridges disappeared for a while, so I guess you watch something from the 80s, and then you watch something from now. Okay? His face widened. Hello? That's noticeable. I call it, you know, wide face syndrome, and David Boreanaz, love him to pieces. He has it too. If you look at, like, the second season of Buffy, you're like, oh, okay. And then you look at him in Angel and you go, well, probably towards the end of Angel. Or you watch Bones and you're like, wow, his face. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It's just, it doesn't work then. That's something that I think would be fairly obvious if you were going to do something like that, to take that into account. And I think that's the biggest reason why young Jeff Bridges doesn't work. The character concept and all that, interesting, though incomplete. Clue is, well, good intentions from the movie standpoint and from the outside standpoint. Spoonie brought up a good point. Why did he go evil and so quickly? Yeah, okay. You're a program with a very specific instruction and you're trying to carry out that instruction. Okay. Wait, when did that actually make you evil, though? You know? What was the fight scene that I think that they showed in the middle of the movie with Jeff and Clue and Tron? When did that take place? Before or after the ISO genocide, you know? Little details, and I just might have missed it, but it just... You know that he's going to be evil just because of the way they set it up, but that's not necessarily enough to really enjoy the character. He was sort of flat as far as bad guys go, because I've seen some really good bad guys. Yeah, and thinking about it now, he's not up to par. He's like a third-rate bad guy, I'd say. Just, he's not fleshed out enough. He could be so much more awesome if we learned something more about him that maybe isn't exactly original program related. Okay, so I actually made a list of things that I wanted to talk about as far as things that the movie shoulda, woulda, coulda. Trying to think of any other positive notes that I want to go through real quick. Maybe I'll just leave them at the end. Anyways, for those of you that actually know the original Tron, the tribute to the bit was bittersweet. I realized that people are like, what the bit? Because that was clearly the 80s. But you could have done something for like a couple of minutes. It wasn't exactly like they were in it very long in the first movie anyways. It's in it for like a minute at the beginning and like a minute in the middle. I really like the bits. They could have done something with it and, you know, added, not taken away. And I think the only way they could have taken away is adding, like, giving the bits personalities like the twins, you know, from Transformers. You know, otherwise, you know, the yes-no thing, it could have been funny. It could have added. But that's the other thing that this movie is lacking, is the lightheartedness of the original. I think that's due to the simplicity of the first one. They tried to make it so complex and it kind of got convoluted, I feel. You know, it's... I'm happy and sad at the same time. Let's see here. Not enough Tron. Alright. Big spoiler alert. Okay, we see him quite a bit as the bad guy, but fight for the users! And then the bit where he falls into the ocean and is sinking to the bottom and he changes colors again. Oh, yay. But does this mean we're never going to see him again, or is this setting it up for yet another sequel? Either way, not enough Tron! The whole reason why you went in to see Tron the first time because he was the hero. Okay, making him a villain was an interesting and twist on the idea. I will definitely give you that. But either way, there still wasn't enough of him. I didn't even know it was him until near the end, which I'm one of those that usually picks up on things faster. I was like, oh, yeah. Let's see here. Yes, most of the characters were there. Okay, Jeff Bridges. The next Yoda. You know? I'm sitting here, I'm doing my things, Zen, Sam. I'm a user. Look at me. Oh, I've got daddy issues. Gotta include that. Cora, I think that was her name. It's spelled all weird with the Q's and stuff. She was one of the most interesting characters because you sort of get a glimpse. She likes the outside world from what she's been told. She's, she had different relationships with different people, like, talking about Zeus, which, why didn't they get more into that? That would have been pretty cool, too. Even a flashback for, like, a couple of minutes, So much could have been done. And she's curious, sort of, not quite a child's mentality, but that innocence. And that's what makes her character interesting. And I thought Zeus was interesting, though some people found him annoying. In a sea of rather dull characters, he stood out. And though that also made it awkward, it still made for interesting, at least when I was watching it. Who else? And then, Clue, I'm a bad guy. I'm here to destroy everything and make it perfect. And his assistant I think could have been, like, way more interesting, too. He's like, I'm over here, I'm spy, hey, my master, And, I don't know, he struck me as an ISO, too. But, yeah. One particular spot in the movie when they're on the, I forgot what it's called, the beam of light fly train thing. Cora mentions that Flynn, Jeff Bridges' character, Flynn, is God. And Sam doesn't correct her because earlier in the movie they were talking about the ISOs, and I specifically remember that the ISOs came out of nowhere. They brought themselves, or some other random act brought them into being. Not Clue or any of the grid stuff over here, and not Jeff Bridges, the real world stuff over here. It came from a completely third outside source. Okay, so why should she call him God? I was like, that's not right. And why isn't anybody correcting her? To Clue, like, Flynn would be God. Yeah, okay. He did create him and probably several other program type stuff. But, I don't know, that just really bothered me. Also, in that same scene is when the Flynns are talking and he's like, oh, hey, what's going on outside? And he's like, oh, well, there's been all this revolutionary software type stuff. And the polarized caps are melting. Can there be a movie nowadays that doesn't once mention global warming? It's not necessary. If you look outside, you determine whether or not I want to be immersed in the story world. That doesn't need to be included. Even for a nanosecond, it stuck out like a sore thumb. This is not a sore thumb, but I was like, now it's going to take me 5 minutes to get back into this movie because I'm so angry that they did that. They could have said, oh, the internet. The internet, it's this amazing thing. You could talk to somebody on the other side of the world right now. Or even the wireless, I think they mentioned, but the internet. How do you skip over the internet? And there are so many other number of things that they could have brought up. But no, they didn't. That was probably near the top of my irking list. Let's see here. And Spoonie actually brought this one up, was incorporating modern type programs into this, like the multi-core processing. And, he has a really good point. That movie would have been 10 times more interesting if they had been able to incorporate even a couple of more modern day programs. But no, this grid had to be isolated from everything else ever. So we have to stay to the original and only have this and that. And it's kind of a good idea, but, you know, you still have to reinvent yourself. You know? Okay. Trying to wrap it up. Let's see here. Also, he brought up the show us more of the world, and I thought about it, I was like, yeah, most of it has been interiors. Like, you get to see a bit of the city a little bit once Flynn actually enters. You get the street scene, which you still don't see that much. You get the scene where they're driving out to Jeff Bridges' domain, and you get to see a little bit when they're flying towards the portal. But that's really about it. And as much as I want to be immersed in the story, if you can't show me what the story looks like, it's kind of hard to actually put yourself there. And I love being immersed in a movie. If I don't realize that it's been 2 hours, it's a good movie. But there was a couple of times where I think that I pulled myself out and was like, okay. Let's see here. Spoonie also brought this up. Where did the pig come from? Where did any of that food come from? They don't show, like, food preparation area or a hologram transporter thingy, like, you know, Star Trek. Nothing like that. Just, there it is. Already made. They don't have a maid or a cook or anything, and it's the little things like that that, you know, how hard would it have been to add a little something of them actually, like, showing where it came from? And the books, you know, did Jeff Bridges' character, like, code them in? And if so, how did he remember, like, everything that's on all of the pages? Yeah. Okay. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Oh. So, the end of the movie. Obviously, the girl comes with the guy because we all saw that coming. And could that have maybe been a little bit more different? Maybe. So she's out. What does that mean for the grid? She was the last ISO. I mean, true. Sam shut the grid off, so I guess technically everybody's dead. Very hard to conceptualize programs. Are they sleeping? Have they just been awake all this time? I don't know. But, you know, did they... Is that the ending, or did they set it up for more? I guess, is what I'm going... Would I go see another one of these? If they brought TRON back, I think I might. Everybody else can kind of go over there. So maybe Cora, but I have a soft spot for 13. So, let's see here. Good points. I really did like what they did with the light cycles. I thought it was very neat that they had the different levels and they had to fight more, and though the strategy could have been better because there was more space, the idea of it getting closer and closer didn't really pan out. But in general, the heart still felt like it was there for that part. They didn't use the paranoids. What kind of name is that anyway? The little things. They were only in there for a couple seconds. They didn't really, you know, do enough with those. Thinking. This is... I mean, there was a lot of stuff that I did like about it. I thought the costuming was really good. And some of the characters, you know, some of the smaller big characters I thought were more interesting than the characters we had to watch the whole time. Some of the concepts, like, you know, because you can't delete a program, you can only repurpose a program. He had himself technically an ISO army. Okay, that's cool. That's actually a really interesting concept that I don't think I personally would have come up with. don't know. How is he can take all the... there are still things that I'm still trying to wrap my brain around. That's the ferret. But I guess I, despite all of its flaws, I still enjoyed watching it. And I think that's really what it comes down to. If you can sit down and put the nitpicking aside and still enjoy yourself, does that make it a bad movie? I don't think so. I think it makes an entertaining movie. Not necessarily a good movie, but not a great movie. You know, that middle road, I can sit down and watch this just to have a good time. You know, sometimes you have to have movies like that. Sometimes some of the flaws get in the way a bit more than others. Transformers. But, yeah. So, there you have it. That's my thoughts and feelings on Tron Legacy. If I was actually going to rate it on my review scale, B. So, you know, good, not great. And I hope that you found that interesting, and if you want to discuss, like I said, this is based off, you know, close to a week-old memory, watching a review and chatting with people about it. So, also personal opinion as well as trying not to be biased. So, thank you all for watching, and have a good